Hey guys. Um, I'm a little early for once. I thought I'd come on here and just hang out with you guys a little bit before our guest comes on. Still waiting on our guest. I have everything set up. So we will need to do like a little bit of like a shuffling once I get their call coming in. So I'm probably going to put us on the like be right back screen when they come in. So anyway, how are you guys doing? I know that it's been a little over a week since I showed up, but I don't know if you've noticed, but the lighting looks a little different. I hope it looks better, a little sharper. Um, I've been doing research, so apologies for the lack of streams over the last week. I have been working on making these streams better quality. So got a few new things and changed up my setup a little bit. It is better. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Yes, Stephen. um, but yeah, so I'm here. I'm I'm alive. guess that's a good thing. It's already November, guys. Good, brighter, crisper lighting. Thank you. Excellent. I've been doing a lot of research to try and get the lighting to look better. And just for like, I want like a little bit of shadows, but nothing crazy. And it is a little bit difficult to figure that out with the light coming in through the window as well. So I've been doing a lot of research. My guest is here. I need to admit them in. Give me a second, guys. We're going to go on the Be Right Back screen. And then when we come back, it will be the official beginning of this stream. Okay. Give me a second, guys. I'll be right back. Hi, everyone. Okay, so I'm gonna turn your audio on. Okay, can you say hi to everyone? Oh, I'm noticing that it is not actually going through. We're gonna try. We're gonna try that again. This is why we need to do a test in the beginning. Can we try that again? Can you say hello?
Sure. Hi, everybody.
Hey,
Hi.
does everyone hear Kristen all right? I'm just gonna wait for the chat a little bit. So
Sure.
if you guys in the chat can be our sound check people and tell us if Kristen sounds good. Is Kristen too loud? Am I too loud? Okay, Kristen, you go and say something again.
Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you.
Wonderful. So how does it sound, guys? Do we sound pretty even? Yeah? We're getting a lot of yeps. Cool. Very cool. Gonna wait a little bit more because there's always like a little bit of a delay. So,
Sure.
sounds good. Okay. Everyone says we sounds good. A little tinny. Unfortunately, I can't really do much about that. I'm sorry, guys. I mean, I could try and put like equalizers and stuff on you, but like, we're not gonna mess with that live. I did way too much of that yesterday. I just got a new lapel mic.
Nice.
Yeah, a new lapel mic, and I must have like just spent, I don't know, 45 minutes just like meddling with the with like the treble and the mids and the is too much. Anyway, well, since the audio is working really well, now we're going to get into the actual beginning of this stream. Thank you, Flute Center, for sponsoring this stream. It's a really special stream. We haven't really done anything like this before. We are going to talk about performance anxiety. We're going to share our stories, and we're going to share some tips as well. And we'll also ask you guys for your stories and your tips. So if you guys have anything to share, if anything that we say rings a bell in your experience, or you have an interesting tip to share, please do so in the chat. We're probably going to just, read it off after a bit, and, we will commune with you guys. So, by the way, if you guys didn't know, I think everyone in the chat knows this already. I do have a code with the Flute Center, JAF, to get your so many perks. They're all in the info box below. I'm sure that you guys can rattle them off by now. So for more info on that, you can get an instrument with the Flute Center with my code to get a whole bunch of perks. Again, down in the info box below. So wonderful. Okay, so guys, I want you guys to welcome Kristen Wuest from the Flute Center. Kristen, can you talk about what you do at the Flute Center?
Sure, I'd love to. So I've been at the Flute Center since February 2022, so I'm a relatively newer employee. I started off doing online fulfillment. So if you placed an order on the website from February 2022 until around only a few months ago, I was doing fulfillment. So then, in January of 2023, I was invited to be on the sales team. So it's a little bit of a different position. Mm-hmm. So it's nice. I get to work with a lot of clients who are trialing. It's been so cool. So that's a sales team member now. And I've been loving it. So that's what I do here. Before here, I taught for 15 years private flute lessons. For a long time, that was my first job out of college, and I did it for 15 years. Then COVID happened, and I got pushed online.
Got it.
18 months I had to teach online. I had 25 flute students weekly.
Oh my gosh.
Burned me out completely. I took love out of it.
Especially if you're pushed into it straight from in person.
I worked for a school, and the decision was no in-person lessons for 18 months. So a long time. And I was like, I need something new. And I started with Flute Center.
Hey, well, I mean, I'm so happy that you got on board, because this is really, really awesome. We've been chatting, guys, over email and stuff like that. So this has been, it's been really, really wonderful, having you on board and working with you and stuff like that. So now, today though, we are going to be talking about performance anxiety. Now, the two of us are flutists who don't necessarily, I think in our day-to-day job, perform all the time. But if you are a musician, you probably have had experiences with performance anxiety. So what we're going to do today is spend the first half of this stream just trading stories. And then afterwards, we will talk about some tips dealing, or at least the tips that we have tried or heard of dealing with performance anxiety, which I think is the part that most people talk about. They talk about the tips. Personally, I've been very interested in the stories that people tell, because I think everyone reacts differently, has a different background or reason for being anxious while performing. I know I certainly had my own reasons that are, fairly different from other people's reasons to be anxious while performing. I did share some in a blog post with Flute Center that was also released today. I should probably share that with you guys. Give me a second here. I'm going to share that with you guys in the chat if you guys want to read that now or later. So I'll put here, this is Joanna's piece on performance anxiety. So this piece is about my personal experience. It's kind of like a creative nonfiction piece about it. But these are my personal stories. So let me put that in the chat, and I will pin it if I can get to pinning it. Oh, there we go. Pin message. Okay, perfect. Sometimes the technology doesn't let you click on things that you want to click on. Anyway, so, well, Kristen, do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
Sure. I can go first.
Yeah, sure.
And I am going to start with my earliest memory of performance anxiety that stuck with me for the last 30 years. So,
Ooh.
so I am going to be 39 in a couple of months. So I started playing flute when I was 9 years old in fourth grade. And our first band concert, I was so excited leading up. I was like ready to go. Then it comes to that day and I'm in school and I went to the nurse at lunch feeling sick and asked to go home. And I called my parents and they said, you can't come home. You have a concert tonight. And I think it then like came out that I was feeling those physical symptoms of anxiety. I wasn't actually sick with germs. I had anxiety going on. And my parents really pushed me to do that band concert, that first on stage, couple months into playing.
Yeah.
And it was probably one of the biggest hurdles that I had to do. It was really hard. It was really scary. But once I did it, the overwhelming sense of joy and pride just washed over me. And I can't say I was never scared again, but knowing that you get that reward at the end stuck with me for the last 30 years. That's enough to live off of, that feeling.
That high, right?
I still get it. And there are performances that I do to this day that high is with me for days afterwards.
Yeah.
And it's the best feeling.
Yeah.
So I try to hang on to that. Like, I wish I could bottle it.
Oh,
right?
Yes. Yes.
But, you can't. So you just have to remember what that feels like. And that has helped me in the last 30 years, just knowing that feeling comes afterwards.
Yeah. Imagine when Kichi just responded saying that exactly what I was thinking, which is that nerves and anxiety are just signs that you want to do well.
Exactly. And I have to say, it's a very odd hobby juxtaposed to flute, but I'm a huge CrossFitter. Like, I love CrossFit. I'm doing it since 2017. I am that woman flipping tires in the gym. Like, that's me.
Yeah.
And I very much relate my anxiety with that to music because I've loved it so much that I started doing competitions.
That's awesome.
It is, but it's, as someone who before they started CrossFit couldn't run a mile, it's a very scary thing, almost worse than performing my flute.
Wow.
And my coaches always say, and they say this to everybody, you're nervous because you care. It's a good thing. You want to do well. That's all it is.
Exactly. Like, if anything, I think the way that I see it is nerves are energy, right? Like, you have it's just that the way you feel that same energy, like during and after.
It too. It's how you use it to benefit you.
Exactly. Yeah. And like, it took me a long time to harness that, I think.
I'm still working on it.
Yeah.
I think it's a lifelong thing.
Exactly. Like, I think that every time you perform, you kind of learn, like how to harness it a little bit better. Because I know that, like, even looking at my own streams and my own videos and stuff like that, you can tell that my earlier videos and my streams, I'm like kind of awkward and kind of like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not like completely myself and I'm like kind of, and trying to put on a show and stuff like that. But I think over time that I've been doing this, I've realized that I think that people want to see you. They want to see what you have that other people don't. So by default of being yourself, you can really just harness who you are and just put that on blast. Like, you don't have to be perfect or whatever you think is perfect. It's whoever you are. That's
hard to get
really awesome.
though. It's hard to accept that it's not going to be a perfect. That's another part of it. I think is learning to accept that this is not going to be perfect. I'm going to make a mistake. It's all about how you deal with it in the moment.
Exactly.
And it's hard when you're anxious because sometimes it's hard to figure out what, you're in the moment.
Yep.
But it's just harnessing and using it as a benefit for you.
Let's see. Jay's saying it's different for everyone. Had horrifying anxiety when playing an instrument, but put them in front of a crowd to give a speech and they love it.
I am the exact opposite. Public speaking, not my jam.
It's so interesting, right? Because I had the same experience between piano and the flute. So on the piano, and I talked about this in that piece that I wrote, but I talked about how like I would just get like really paralyzing anxiety playing the piano in front of people. And the weird thing is that between the piano and the flute, it's both music, right?
Right.
And yet I freeze up on the piano, but on the flute, I feel like I'm like released.
I'm the same way. And I play piano too. Did you start with piano or flute?
I started with piano.
Same.
Yeah. Isn't that wild?
Crippling. Yeah. When I would accompany my students, crippling. Like shaking. Fingers. Like, that's who I am with flute. I mean, everything pretty much lives inside. But, I don't get it.
Yeah, I know. And like, I wonder if it's like almost kind of like an innate calling type of thing where like you are just naturally drawn towards a specific instrument or a specific type of performance,
right.
And like, I guess it's whatever feels home to you, right? Yeah. Because I wouldn't say that piano feels like home to me, Yeah, like all the times that I think of the best that I've ever played, I've been by myself, by myself in a little practice room or just at home, no one watching. And I play the best and most expressively and musically on the piano. Yeah, but I am the opposite on the flute. Like, in order to get me to play my absolute best, someone needs to be watching.
That's so interesting.
I don't know why. Like, I think it's like this added thing. Like, I think it's actually part of the reason why my playing has gotten a lot better over the last few years because I've been streaming my practice sessions, which means that someone's always watching. And I think it like pushes me to explore more and to let go more. But yeah, I have been kind of pondering, like, is it because I feel at home on the flute rather than on the piano, right? It's really interesting, right?
Yeah, I've tried to dig down because like, it's funny because even during COVID though, like a lot of time at home, right? I would always gravitate to the piano. I would always like, if I just wanted to play for love, for joy, I would go, oh, I'm going to play piano.
Yep.
Because that gives me joy by myself. Yep. Flute does too. Flute very much does. But like, I think because piano is not my career and my job.
There you go.
It's different.
Yes. I feel that because I was at a pretty down point actually during my master's. I had my heart broken. Yeah, that's kind of I mean, if we're talking about like being very emotional, right? Like that having your heart broken is very emotional. And I actually like, as much as I did find expression in the flute, in terms of actually just kind of like letting it out by myself, I did actually turn to the piano too. And I played old songs that I had done with my old piano teacher from way back when I lived in California, like when I was a kid, basically, Yeah, I was playing like a little Chopin nocturne. And I was just like, because I still remember my piano teacher teaching me expression. She was really, I think, the first teacher to teach me expression. And she was also the first teacher to really address this issue of nerves too. And actually, she very willingly let me go from piano. She saw that I was doing really well on the flute. Yeah. And then she was like, you should continue pursuing the flute. And then she actually accompanied me for a competition before. Yeah. Like she's like, Amazing. Like I think she really recognized that like I think she recognized a bit of herself in me too. That's what I think, because she also kind of like went off into piano very young as well. And so I think she could see that same kind of fire in me. And so she wanted me to pursue it instead of just keeping me as her student. But she's really...
That's something special, because not every teacher is like that.
No, I will never forget it, you know, and but she was the one who actually like was the first teacher to address what nerves are. And
I wish, because none of my teachers addressed it with me. It was kind of like, it comes with the territory type thing, and
yeah,
move on.
Exactly. I think that conversation with her is really kind of the inspiration for this stream, actually, because I agree with you. I feel that a lot of times we talk about performance anxiety like, oh, well, everyone has to do it. But like, no one really talks about like what exactly it is or how it can manifest differently from person to person. And I feel like the more that we share our own unique stories, the more we can draw from each other, like what can actually help. Because, you know, like my piano teacher, she told me that she still shakes before her own performances, and that she still, like, at the same time, she's very passionate and she plays unbelievably well. Like, I still remember the first time I watched her in performance. This was before my brother and I became her students, and she was putting on like a kind of like a local recital. And it was the first time in my life that I had ever seen up close a musician just letting it all out, like expression wise. And it's become a core memory for me. And she told me that she was nervous for that, you know? And I think there was something very inspirational about hearing that someone that you think plays like a god, you know, was nervous, and she didn't think of the nerves as necessarily a negative thing. She was just like, I'm using it to fuel the performance, right?
Wow.
Yeah. And yet on the other side, she still recognized that I had that for the flute and not necessarily for the piano. And she never made me feel bad about it.
That's very lucky, because I kind of wish I had that. Because like I said, it was like, this just comes with it. Something you have to deal with.
Yeah.
How do I deal with it? How do I?
Yeah, exactly.
I wish I had some guidance, because it would have helped. And that's why, as a teacher, I was so dedicated to putting the love of music. Like, that's really the type of teacher I was. Like, I was like, you're supposed to love this. Let's love it. Like, I'll do whatever I can for you to help you love this.
Yeah.
I really talk to my students a lot about performance anxiety.
That's so good.
And they had to do, you know, this is always a little, I don't know how you feel. I would love to know how you feel. But as a teacher, I really pushed them, but gave them the out if they need. Like, I didn't want to be a teacher that was like, you have to do this. I am making you do this.
Yeah.
But I would lay out all the positives and try. And if they still didn't want to, fine. But some teachers are not like that, and they will push. So I was wondering how you felt about that.
I'm also not a push. Yeah. It has actually been weirdly, I guess this might be going a little bit off topic, but I think it's interesting to point this out, that one, I think that it could also be slightly a generational thing too. I think our generation of teachers are more interested in actually like sort of like developing almost sort of the more mental side of performing, of practicing, of playing. Whereas like I feel like there was sort of this standard of like, you have to, you know, get all your students to perform, you know, like it was almost like for a long time, it was a given that you had to make your students perform. And I honestly have never made my students perform. If they performed, it was their own decision to do so. And honestly, I kept doing it even though I felt like I was deviating from the standard of constantly making your students perform. I kept doing it because I noticed the like how much better of an experience they had if, like, let's say someone wanted to perform, but they just weren't ready for it now, right? I have been with several students exactly like that, where they didn't try anything for like 3-4 years that I was teaching them. And I never pushed them to do it. It's just one day they come to a lesson and be like, yo, there's this group I want to try, you know? And I'm just like, okay, do it, you know? Yeah. Like the most that'll happen is they'll say no. Or the most that'll happen is maybe you'll find out you hate it and then you'll quit and it no harm done, right? Exactly. Or you might find you love it.
Yeah. Alternatively, if they don't want to do it and they're pushed and something tragic happens, they will never forget that, and they will never forget you for making that.
Yeah. Like it, you know, like I want their performance experiences
to be positive.
Yeah. Not only to be positive, but also something that they own.
Yes.
You know?
That's
like,
a really good point.
Yeah. Right. It's not mine. And this is actually a great segue to my story about performance anxiety, because I've been thinking about why I had it this bad. So I have mentioned on my various videos and streams before that I actually did a master's audition before my successful one. So there was a master's audition that I did that I completely and utterly failed. Like it was a bad time. And I think that's the worst I've ever had my performance anxiety on the flute. And I've been thinking for years, like, not that I'm not thankful for it. I think that I'm very thankful that I failed it, because the butterfly effect was that I ended up meeting my husband. Right. So like, and I wouldn't be sitting here right now if I didn't fail that. So like in the end, I don't regret failing it, but I think it's still fair to think about why it happened.
Yeah, right? Absolutely.
Yeah. To just like, sit on it and stew on it. And so for this particular master's audition, a number of things went wrong. One was when I was waiting to go into the room, I was sitting on a cold linoleum floor.
Why they do that?
I was sitting on a cold linoleum floor, and I made the mistake of putting my flute on the cold linoleum floor, which makes the flute super cold, right? And then when I went into the room was like a sauna. Like it was hot. It was hot in there, like immediately started sweating. I'm a sweater. Like anytime I get excited or any sort of heightened emotion, I immediately blush and start sweating. Like that's actually one of the reasons why I have contacts on right now. Because I was thinking maybe during this stream, I might overheat a little bit and then end up fogging up my own glasses, because that totally happens. So I'm that type of person. And so like, in this particular audition, it was like, I could tell that I was out of tune, but then I couldn't tell which way. Because like, the anxiety was so overwhelming that like, you just know you're off, but you don't know how and which way. Yep. On top of that, the piano was probably wildly out of tune too, Definitely. Yeah. Because it's sitting in a sauna basically. Yeah. So like, and I just remember the panel, I could see the panel, and they were just kind of, that face where they're just kind of like, And I was like, I remember thinking to myself, okay, I'm done. Like, but like, and then I was thinking more about like what happened afterwards. Yeah. And I was like, how did it go so wrong? Like, how have I why did I let my anxiety just completely control me, you know? And what I realized many years after the fact was that I really should have known it then, but I realized that I didn't actually want to do the audition.
Oh.
I felt like I think what it was that I just kind of got caught up with life, and I was like, oh, this is just the next step, you know?
Yeah.
And it wasn't like a self-conviction type of thing. Like it wasn't something I like desired to do or that I wanted to do. It was just like, oh, this is just the next thing I do.
Yeah.
You know? And then so like if you go into any sort of performance, I feel, where you're just like, oh, I guess I'm just doing this, you know? You're right, you don't own it. It's not your experience. Like, you just feel like you're trying to fulfill some vague societal expectation, you know?
Right.
It's not even someone else's expectation. That's what I realized, was that I just assumed that this was like the musician's expectation.
Right.
You know?
Which is, I feel like there are a lot of those as a musician. Like unreasonable expectations that all of us feel.
Exactly. Which, like, you know, it's really ironic, especially when we start talking about it. We all think it's unreasonable, and yet we all feel it.
Yeah.
Then it's like, who is the one making all of the expectations?
Where is this coming from?
Are we actually just collectively dreaming it up together, or like what is going on? But yeah, exactly. Jay is saying that it's the why am I here? Right? That was exactly I realized I was asking myself that in the back of my head. I'm like, why am I here? Like, I don't want to do this. Oh, there's another funny side story to this. So apparently I was so nervous leaving for this audition. I don't think I've ever told this part online before, but so my family's home, because I lived with my family at the time. My family's home had an alarm system. Now, when people are home, you don't need to set the away alarm, right? I just autopiloted, just set the alarm on away. And there were like motion sensors in the home too, right? So my family didn't even know that I had set the alarm. And then one of them went by the motion sensor and like just like it like set off the alarm, like No. So like my mind is just not there. You know?
That's what anxiety does though. Like it takes away your capacity to be in the moment and really kind of, I notice it outside of music too, because I have pretty severe general anxiety, like not just performance anxiety, like life anxiety. And I notice it in just life, that when you're anxious, you cannot, as much as you try, you can't slow your brain down. You can't think reasonably. You can't, as your voice in your head can be telling you, you need to be doing this, and you are incapable. It is such a wild body like it's such a wild reaction that your body has. It's quite unbelievable, actually.
Yeah. I think like that's the thing too, that like weirdly enough, I find that a lot of like practice anxiety tips and stuff like that concentrate on, like, weirdly, the tips are usually something more on the mental side or very superficially physical that you can do. But I find that the range of like physical anxiety, like manifestations, is huge. It's different from person to person.
Exactly. And it can be anything.
Yeah. Exactly. Like I, again, am a sweater. So I even sweat through my fingers, you know, like, so whereas I know that other people get very dry and they get very cold, you know, I'm the opposite. I get really, really warm, you know? And so like, there's really no, at least I feel there's no like generalization that we can make for performance anxiety. So I'm sorry guys, if you're here to look for tips we're
cure.
not talking about the cure here. We're just really, we're trading stories to start the conversation about like what it's really like individually to have performance anxiety. So anyway, that particular audition did not go well. Spoiler. But like it was like I feel that it was a fantastic experience to have though, because
I think anything like that will shape you.
Yeah, exactly. And like I think that not only that, but it makes it so that I can actually, you know, like relate to my students especially, and like I know what it's like to have that kind of like all consuming anxiety. So I would say that my truth, and this is not everyone's truth, but my truth is that I feel that whenever I get really bad anxiety, it's because I don't own it.
That's interesting.
And I know that this is not the case for everyone, but it's just that over time, I have sort of cataloged all of my performance anxiety experiences. And the one thing that is common amongst all of them is that I didn't feel that I owned the experience.
I never thought about it that way.
Yeah. Because there was once, I think I also did not talk about this in the piece that I wrote. I started writing it, but then it didn't really fit into the piece, so I took it out. But it was when I was 12, I was sent to a masterclass. Yeah, it was. Now, I don't know if it was because I was 12 and I didn't pay attention to the explanation of what a masterclass is, but I know that it did not enter my head what a masterclass was. Because if you think about it, when you're 12, do you really care?
And do you really know enough to know what it's such a nuancey experience? How would you know?
Yeah, exactly. And so not only because the thing is, like, when it's a masterclass, everyone in the audience is probably also a flutist, you know? I mean, why else would they be there? Right?
always have that one like clarinet player that's there just sitting and like taking notes. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, but you know, most of them are flutists, right? So I had the understanding that it was like a lesson though. So when I walked in, like, I thought it was actually a private lesson. I guess in my head, I was like, oh, this is a master.
I was going to say, it is like a lesson, just like a public lesson.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know if maybe it actually was explained to me, but it just went over my 12-year-old head. Very possible that it was actually explained to me. It somehow did not get into my brain, though. And so when I actually realized what was happening, because the people in the audience were not leaving.
Oh no.
And I was like, oh. You know? And then I ended up having, because my piece that I was going to play was the Mozart D third movement. Mm-hmm. You know, it's supposed to be like happy-go-lucky. Yes. Right? I went like it just like went way off the rails, you know?
Oh my gosh.
And so like again, for that experience, you know, well, I mean, the other part too was that the guest artist, I think, may not have known that, because the other students were not 12. I was the youngest one. And so they straight up stopped me in front of everyone and asked, are you nervous?
Oh, nice.
And like, I think back to it now and I'm like, okay, here's the thing. I understand that all of the other students were probably 16, 17, 18 years old, something like that, you know, and I'm like this kid coming in, right? So I totally understand that if anyone is like out of the out of place there, it was me.
Right,
know?
already.
Yeah.
Just your age.
Yeah, just because of my age. So I was like, I understand that there could be miscommunication type things, and it's no one's fault really,
Right.
you know. So like I what happened was that for 12-year-old me, with that question, on top of the fact that I still don't feel like I really owned that experience, I felt like it was just kind of sprung on me, you know, like
Right.
it's not something that I intended to do. And
right. You were told you're going to do this.
Exactly. And then then with that question posed by this master, you know, I was like, my 12-year-old brain is still kid brain, you know, and kid logic will thus dictate, I feel I did badly. And this person is implying that it's because I'm nervous, therefore nerves are bad.
Oh, that'll do it.
Right? And I think I carry that with me.
I'm sure you do.
For a really long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, you're really in tune enough to know and like kind of make that connection that this is happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a moment on stream, actually. I was still streaming on Twitch at the time. But I think for some reason I was playing that exact movement for fun. But I just had this moment where I froze because I was like, you know, like I just kind of got wrapped up in my own head and my own memories. Mm-hmm. And then that was the moment I realized that this might be a core memory that I need to dissect a little bit, and digest, because I think I never really digested it, you know? So I've been giving it a lot of thought since then. Yeah.
I think brought up a really good point, because I think we do associate performance anxiety as being bad and we need to fix this. We need to make it not happen. And that's not possible. No. So it's flipping it and harnessing it and having it help you do what you need to do. Exactly. But there's no cure. There's only tools in your toolbox. That's it. Mm-hmm. It's not a bad thing though. Yeah. Because if you harness it right, it can actually be a good thing.
Exactly. And so I was 12 at the time that happened. I would say that my piano teacher started talking about this idea of harnessing maybe a little bit after that, I think.
Okay.
A little bit after. So looking at my own timeline, I wonder if she started to see something go wrong a little.
Even if even if it was subconscious, she probably caught something that brought it up.
Yeah. I feel like she was very intuitive. I felt like she knew things about, probably just from my facial expression, because I don't like to admit it, but I know that I wear my heart on my sleeve, you know.
I think we all do as musicians. We were just talking about this in the office.
You can't hide.
We're all empaths. We suck up everyone's emotions. Yeah. We don't hide how we're feeling at all.
Well, I mean, isn't that what makes us great performers?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think she could tell something was not right, you know? Right. And I will never forget that lesson. We spent most of that lesson just talking. And if anything, it was mostly her talking, because she couldn't really get me to talk, because I didn't really know what to say. You know what I mean?
Because you didn't really know at that point.
Yeah. But she was empathic enough to know that there was something wrong, I think. You know?
She sounds like A++ teacher, man.
Yeah. She is honestly, I think, one of the greatest blessings of my life. Yeah, just wonderful.
I hope my students say that about me.
I think that, to me, I think that that is the mark of a successful teaching experience. Like when you know that you have created a safe space for your students to come back to, rather than feeling like they have to perform for you, you know. Yeah, it makes my day every single time a former student of mine randomly sends me an update email. I'm just like, oh my gosh, you feel safe enough to update me. That is the greatest gift.
Well, Joanna, let me tell you, at least yours aren't like getting married. Okay. So like, at least, like, I now have students coming to me, Miss Kristen, still calling me Miss Kristen. I got engaged. And I'm like, oh
stop it. Right?
Old. Like,
oh, that's fantastic though, you know.
yeah.
Yeah. I've done that to teachers though, you know, and they're always like,
of course, yeah.
Yeah, and they're always like, oh.
You get the same response. It's like full circle.
Yeah. That's the teacher karma, you know? So, but anyway, I think now might be a good time for us to segue into some tips. Now,
sure. First
off, before we segue into the tips, let's see if there's any like particular questions or things like that. I'm just going to, So other people are also talking about, like, you know, their experiences, what they think. Let's see. I think I do see a question here by E.A. Kirkley. E. Kirkley. I'm so sorry if I'm butchering your username. But E. Kirkley asks, Joanna and Kristen, what are your opinions regarding taking a beta blocker? Wow, we are starting the tips with a bang. Okay.
This would come up.
I have my they're very personal opinions.
Same.
Not the opinions of everyone else, and everyone has a different experience. So, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Why don't you go?
Okay. I would say that personally, you know how earlier I was talking about how I feel that I express better if someone's watching me?
Yes.
So for me, I feel that if I were to take beta blockers, I don't think I would express as well, because I think it would essentially mute my energy level. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that my performances will be as interesting, just straight up. I don't think it'll be as interesting, and I don't think that I would enjoy it, you know?
Yeah.
So, however, I'm not everyone.
Right.
So personally, I'm like, I wouldn't take it, because I know I have a pretty good idea of how my body would react to it. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that the resulting performance will actually be as exciting. I don't think that I do a lot of things off the cuff in front of people that I never think of doing.
Interesting.
I am a non-planner, basically. So like I get it from my dad. My dad's the same. He's a preacher, you know.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I'm a pastor's daughter. So he, like, I'm the same as my dad. In terms of preparation, like, yes, there is some preparation, as you saw with our email exchanges. I did kind of like somewhat prepare the like structure of today's stream, but I didn't like plan every little detail, right? It's just like really quick bullet point form of general structure, and then we just do everything off the cuff, right?
Yeah, which is true. It's like a true it's like it's a true real conversation.
Exactly. Like, we just want the conversation to be guided so that, you know, like, we don't talk for like 4 hours. You know what I mean? But like, so for me, I find that my best work always comes with some improvisation.
Okay.
And so routing back to beta blockers, I feel that it would completely mute that part of me. And
interesting.
Yeah, I don't think that I would be as creative personally.
Yeah. I mean, I know people that take beta blockers for performance anxiety, and I
Mhm.
know it work wonders for them.
Yeah,
And that is
exactly.
the thing, and I'm happy they found something that works for them. I do know there's like a period where you have to kind of find the right dose and
Yep.
make sure
I've
you
heard
know,
that too.
it's in
Yep.
the right place, but once you nail it,
Hmm.
it's very useful to some people. I
Yep.
personally have never
Hmm.
done it for a few reasons.
Hmm.
I'm on medication for
Mm.
ADHD and other things like stimulants that I don't know how
How
that
it
works.
reacts, right?
Also, I find myself a very, as much as I do still 30 years later have performance anxiety, in all things flute, I feel like I'm a very traditionalist. Like
Mm.
and I think it comes with me being raised to be like, this is part of it. Like that was drilled into
Oh.
me so long that I kind of just learned to accept it and just kind of and
Hmm.
work with my tools that I
Yeah.
have. And just beta blockers isn't one of them, but
Yeah.
I do know for sure that people have success.
Yep.
Um,
I
and I
have
think,
friends who have success with it too.
yeah, and I think
Absolutely.
that's great. And I'm happy for them
Yeah.
because why not?
Yeah. And they get to do what they love, you
Yes.
know? Like just because it mutes the experience for me, it doesn't mean that it mutes it for other people,
Right.
right? Like
Right.
so it like I think that it's something that like you can certainly think about if you have truly a lot of trouble performing.
Yeah.
Um,
It's something to explore for sure. Talk to your
yeah,
doctor.
exactly. Don't do it without the guidance of a doctor. Um, I have heard of some people getting it like under the table,
Don't do
and
that.
exactly. And so I
Something I will be judgy about. Do not do that.
exactly that is exactly what both of us will be judgy about. Do not do it under the table. I have heard of some people doing it under the table, and it just gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah,
Like
no.
I just like don't because you could overdose. You
Yeah.
know, like very easily. I hear you can overdose. So I'm just like, please don't do that.
Yeah.
I would say that that's really the only thing that makes me truly uneasy.
Yeah.
Is the number of people I have heard getting it under the table.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, but those are our thoughts on using beta blockers.
Yeah.
Well, I guess besides beta blockers, what are your like what helps you with performance anxiety?
So it's funny. It's a lot of little things together. So obviously I feel my best and my least anxious when I'm prepared, right?
Well,
So
yes, yes. Do your
right?
homework, right?
Homework, prepare.
Yeah.
That's the first thing.
Mhm.
But I will have like the same meals the performance day. Like I like bananas, I like carbs, like pasta.
Oh, it's almost like a pre-workout like
That's how I
meal.
look at it. Yeah.
Okay.
So I eat pasta, I eat like high carb food. I'm like almost carbing up for performance.
That's interesting.
I try to just really eat well that day,
Yeah.
drink a lot of water,
Yes.
really take care of my body.
Yes.
Practice, like I'll
Yeah.
play the day of. Some
Yeah.
people are like, don't play.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
To a
Just
point.
don't overdo it. You know? Yeah.
Find that line and
Yep.
play.
Yep.
I'm trying to think what else.
Kind of your go-tos, you know?
May
Like,
sound silly, but I ask everyone, especially my husband, to just be extra kind and graceful with me. Like
oh.
he's a fantastic human being.
Yeah.
We've been together for 20 years. He is my best friend. That being said, I almost isolate myself a little bit.
Oh.
Like I'll almost stay in my bedroom and kind of just not let anything that could possibly set something off do that. And I just kind of live in my own self that day.
I just saw Madge Monkichi said that the opera singer diet is carbs before performance. I didn't know that.
I don't know that either. I just know that pasta makes me happy, so that's what I eat.
Yeah. Jay says that they've heard that people find lots of busking really helps because essentially they practice busking. So like, you know, playing outside, you know, in the streets for fun.
Oh.
Yeah. So because essentially they are practicing performing.
That is so true.
Yeah, that is very true. Yeah. It looks like Beth does take beta blockers, but takes it for blood pressure.
Already just in daily life.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. I believe that's actually what they're for, isn't it?
That is what they're for.
Yeah.
That's why you have to find the right dose, because if you go too much, your blood pressure will drop too much, and then
hence don't overdose on it, please. And please be guided by a doctor while doing so. Interesting. Well, any other things that you do on like performance day?
No, it's mostly body care, like self-care body care. Like
really
that's
good.
what I find makes me feel the best and the most content.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. It's just self-care that day.
That is awesome. So what I noticed is that my anxiety like tics have changed over the years. So before, I used to get like before a performance that I was like really excited about, I would lose my appetite completely. Like I even
started why I forced myself to get something to eat.
Exactly, because it's kind of like those stories you hear of brides during weddings like fainting because they're so nervous that they can't eat, but then they end up fainting halfway through the day. So I essentially had that kind of like loss of appetite when I was younger. And so my mom would take me out for like, you know, like a cute sandwich place or something and like make me eat half a sandwich at least, you know? But she was like, even if you have to do it slowly, just eat half the sandwich.
Something in your belly.
Yeah. And so like, I noticed that these days I don't so much get the loss of appetite. But I think these days to prepare for a performance, I find that I'm constantly gauging, like I'm weighing, do I need to practice or do I need to take care of my body? You know, so like for me, taking care of my body means making sure that I eat clean and that I don't overeat. I love eating, so I have a tendency to overeat. So like I just, for the whole week of, I have to be like, I'm going to eat clean. I'm going to not overeat. It's still stuff I love to eat, but just not overdoing it, you know? And then weirdly enough, I know that for me to keep my, well, I guess it's not weird, but like to keep my mental health at its peak and also to keep my alertness and also like my digestion, I have to keep working out through the week.
So, that's super cool. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. Like it's weird because I haven't heard of anyone talking about like working out during the week of, you know, like, and the working out doesn't have to be strenuous. Like it can be as simple as going out for a walk for half an hour every day.
Move your body.
Yeah. It could be anything. Like these days I'm doing Beat Saber at home. You know, it's great. It's fun. I love it. You know, you don't really feel like you're working out because you're just playing a rhythm game, you know?
Yeah.
But like, it's a great workout because it makes you sweat, you know?
Yeah.
And, but it's like, so it can be anything, just something that's not too strenuous, but keeps your body moving most of the days of the week. I find that for me, that also settles my digestion. And I feel that with a settled gut, essentially, everything feels more balanced, you know, and just kind of
makes sense.
Yeah. And I feel that nerves often make me feel unbalanced. And so keeping my physical body very balanced and like tip top shape, like I don't have to look like an Olympic athlete, you know, but like, it's more that like for my body, this is its top shape, right? Yeah. Like if I'm at that point during the week of the performance, I play much better.
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
I do not go to CrossFit the day of because
not the day of. Not the day of.
That's one thing I forgot. I am strict about that because I'm so scared of something, not even just overdoing it. I'm scared of something happening. Like it can be such a dangerous sport that I don't want to break my finger. I don't want to do, it's so easily done that I will not go the day of. And I'm even careful the couple days before because it's just worth it.
Exactly. And also getting enough sleep too.
Yes. Hugely important.
Yeah. Like it's understandable if the night before you have a little trouble sleeping.
Oh, for sure.
So like what I do is I make sure that the whole week before, every night I'm getting adequate sleep. So
that is perfect advice.
Yeah. For my body, I notice that I function very well on 7 hours of sleep. So I make that my minimum. My minimum has to be 7 hours of sleep.
Yeah. I go for 9. I try to go for 9.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There you go. Exactly. And so like, I find that doing all of those things helps me stay more balanced in general on the day of.
When it's just in life in general, right? Like when your body is feeling good, you're feeling good, because when you're not, the first thing it does is go right to your stomach. That is where like your brain is connected to your stomach.
Exactly. And like I personally, like one of my anxiety kind of tics that I had growing up was sweaty fingers. And weirdly enough, because I know that I didn't do this before. Okay. Like I did not take care of myself the week of, and I wasn't thinking about the balance of my healthy body or anything like that. I wasn't thinking about any of that when I was young. So, but I noticed that now that I'm a lot more aware of it, I don't have a lot of the performance weird things that happen to me as much.
What would happen?
So I get too much spit. And I sweat through my fingers.
So you go like moist version, not the dry version.
Yeah. So I can see that Greg here, GOT wins in the chat, is saying that he gets dry mouth.
I get dry. I tend to get dry too. Yes. I tend to go more dry.
What do you do do you have anything that combats that, or like
just being hydrated as much as possible? Not eating salty stuff, because that'll dehydrate. Like that, to me at least, makes me feel drier and like puffier.
Yeah.
But water. I always have water with me when I perform. I don't care. It's like right there at my music stand.
Okay. Yeah. Honestly, like having a bottle of water near you when you perform, to me, looks very professional. I agree. Like there's nothing unprofessional about it or anything. I mean, like if you really wanted to, you could like make sure it's like a black bottle and whatever, like, but you don't have to. Like I've seen musicians just put on like lime green bottle up there and like no one cares, Yeah.
And more should they, because we are humans. We need water.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I know that for me, because I get way too much spit usually, I don't touch my water until after the performance.
Yeah. So
like it really kind of depends on you, and you kind of have to try things, and like, I mean, that's part of the reason why we're sharing our stories right now, is to give you guys just kind of more to draw from, more experiences, like a bigger pool of ideas to draw from.
Mine kind of comes with also, I have a very shaky airstream when I'm and nervous.
So many people have that.
And my vibrato gets what I think sounds terrible, but then when I listen back, if it's recorded, I'm like, oh, I barely hear that at all. Like I don't even hear that. And that's why I stress to clients here, and I stress when I taught that what you hear here is not what is projected out.
Yes. I also stress that to my students too. And it's kind of hard to convince people of that.
Record.
Exactly. I have found that exact same thing, that like the only way to convince yourself that you sound different to other people than to yourself is you have to record and put your recording device where someone would listen to you.
Yes.
Right? Because no one's going to listen to you right here.
No.
Yeah. And I have had a lot of students also tell me that they feel like their vibrato just like sounded awful and stuff like that. And I'm like, I'm going to bet it did not actually sound
Yeah.
that bad.
And to this day, Joanna, I will finish a performance and be like, oh, that sounded like so bad, so shaky. And I get so upset. And then I listen back. I'm like, oh, that's right. It's not real.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Sure, that is not, but like.
I actually think that like, so I guess this is actually a tip that I give my students too, that it's exactly this concept, which is that your experience of the performance, especially if you have some nerves going into it, it's always going to be essentially like a magnified version of what it actually is.
That is exactly right.
Yeah. Like there, yes, it is your reality in the moment, but it is like magnified times 100. Versus what
it's not real, because it is real. It is happening. It's absolutely happening.
It's just like magnified, you know? Yeah, like times 100, you know? Exactly. So like you feel things more, and you feel and you hear more things. It's like a heightened, heightened level of perception.
Exactly.
You know? Yeah. So like it's kind of interesting, I find, because I remember the first time I did a performance where I kept that in the forefront of my mind, that like everything I'm experiencing is like 100 times more heightened than it really is.
I can't for some reason, with all my knowing, and I'm talking about it right now, truthfully believing the words that are coming out of my mouth, I cannot get myself to remember that in the moment.
I don't know what I did, if I'm being completely honest. But I do remember thinking to myself, okay, like everything I'm experiencing is like 100 times more heightened than it really is. And it kind of became like weirdly a bit of like an out of body experience, where it was kind of like watching myself perform, and I could actually let go a little bit more. I don't really know, if I'm being completely honest, I don't really know what got me over.
I wish you could share, because I need to get over that hump.
I think I'm still like, if being completely honest here, I think I'm still like sitting and stewing on what got me over the hump. I think right now, the only thing that I can really think of is the difference between my first master's audition and my second master's audition.
Yeah.
So my second master's audition, I didn't really care about it. I think it's because I was just so burnt from the first experience that I went into the second experience thinking like, whatever, I'll just do this audition. And if it doesn't pull through, like at least I would have gotten something out of it. So like, I went into that audition. I don't know why I thought this was a good idea, but I was like, I printed out a bunch of business cards, because I was thinking to myself, if I fail this, at least these people can like have my contact info. And like I look back now and I'm like, wow, Joanna, why did you think that was a good idea? But I walked in. So like my new teacher, gave me a free lesson right before the audition. Sweetest person in the world, Linda Lucas. Then she walked me to the audition room. And then when I walked in, I went up to everyone in the panel, shook all their hands and gave them my business card, and was like, pleasure to meet you. My name is Joanna, blah, blah, blah. And I just walked in there as if I just like, I think I was really thinking to myself, I really don't care if I fail, because I'm already accomplishing what I set out to do, which is to meet people, right? So I felt like, to me, I already succeeded. Like it wasn't like winning the audition was not the point of the audition for me. So then when I played really well, because I essentially like
You took the pressure off.
Yeah, I took the pressure off because I felt like I had already passed out my business cards and I was like, I'm done. You know?
So interesting.
Yeah, I realize now looking back, like how much of a flip of a power dynamic that is, you know? Yeah, it's I didn't realize how much of a power move that was until.
Oh, that's a big power move. That's a boss girl move.
Yeah, I didn't even realize it until like years later. I thought about it and I was like, what the heck was I thinking? You know, I really,
it did something. It contributed.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, and I remember it was like maybe sometime, it could have been that experience really that made me kind of get out of my own head while performing. I think it's it has something to do with the fact that I knew that I had failed one before, and nothing happened to me.
Right.
You know,
it's almost like you needed that experience.
Yeah. I needed something to go really poorly.
Yeah. To kind of teach you and make you see the other side of it.
Yeah. And I wonder, I'm still stewing on it, but I wonder if just the experience of having that failed experience, realizing that I'm still alive and thriving.
Yeah.
You know, because I think a lot of times the anxiety tells you that essentially you're going to die if you don't do this well.
It feels that way too. Yeah.
Yeah. But then I think maybe I feel like I have failed and I didn't die.
Yeah.
So I think now when I perform, it's like I've been freed from that. Maybe that's what got me over the hump. So I guess my really weird tip is to absolutely bomb a performance. I don't know. But I feel like having a bombed performance really, if you learn something from that experience, you know, and you don't let it, you know, lead you into depression. But if you think about it though, and you consider what you can do differently, but also the benefits of failing, I think it could really do something for you.
Yeah, I think so too. And just understanding that it's a blip in time and it happened, and you know, it's a tool in your toolbox still, whether it's not something that you use to help. Well, it is something, but it's not like a little, you know, like a carb fuel or drinking water. It's not like that. It's an experience in your toolbox.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I honestly feel like all of my failures, I feel, really shaped me.
Oh, I totally, fully believe that.
Yeah. Honestly, they're also the best stories to tell because they're funny. You know, after the fact, they're really funny, you know?
Yeah.
And
not quite in the moment, but definitely after.
Yeah, definitely after. And especially once you realize that you're still alive and that everything is fine.
I'm still a flutist. I'm still a musician.
Yeah. Nothing actually happened to me. Yeah. My reputation is still intact. Yeah. Honestly, who cares about your reputation in the first place? You know? Yeah, it's I really, now that I look back, I'm so glad I failed those many times. I failed a lot of things. I failed ear training. I have failed the master's audition. I failed my driver's license twice, you know. But hey,
it's life.
It is. It absolutely is. So GOT Wins here has a really interesting tip with performance anxiety. So he says he comes up with a mental story with the music that would immerse him so much that they forget that they're performing.
I love that.
Yeah, I think you express better when you do that too.
Yeah.
You know, when you're that's being in your head in a good way.
In a very good way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like you might end up expressing and performing things that you would never have thought of doing on your own time. I think maybe that's part of what happens to me too. When I know that other people are watching, it almost encourages you to go into your own head. But like essentially you have a choice of how do you get into your own head? Do you get into your own head and let the nerves control you, or do you get into your own head and let like the emotions control you?
Yeah,
right?
it's a line.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. And it's like, I think it's a line that you can absolutely practice.
Agreed.
You know? Yeah.
Another, like, practice everything, down to what you're going to wear that day, down to it's just a whole mental preparation for that day.
Yeah, exactly. Jay Cortez has a good one here. Like, if your goal is I need them to validate my worth as a human being, you kind of need another goal. Yes.
I love that. It's thinking about why, and I always told my students this. I would always say, why are you doing this?
Exactly.
And they would say, oh, I'm proud of myself. I want to show what I did, or whatever they would say. And I would say, look at you. You can do this. Not everyone can do this. This is an amazing thing that you can do. You want to share it with other people. That's what musicians do. We share our talent.
Yeah.
And that's all you're doing.
Yeah. There's no expectations for you to fill. There is no standard for you to live up to. This is something that I learned myself going to Italy. Because talking about anxiety, it's not exactly performance anxiety, but it was definitely, I had really bad anxiety right before my first chamber ensemble coaching that I was doing. Because when I got to the festival was when I realized that I was probably the most inexperienced teacher there. And I was like, it made me feel like I needed to prove myself as a teacher. And I woke up at 3:45 the night before my first chamber ensemble that I was going to coach, and then I couldn't go to sleep. So by 5 a.m. I eventually gave in and called my husband because he was here while I was in Italy. So the time difference worked out because it was only like kind of early, late-ish evening for him. Yeah. And so he talked me through it, but the most important thing that he said to me was, you have nothing to prove. Like, you're already there. Yeah. You are already, like, they wanted you there for a reason, and they wanted you for you, not for you to, like, match up to, like, some like, vague standard, He was like, the reason you're there is because you're already yourself. Right. And I think that's something that like I ended up sharing that with the students there too, like, because they were also asking me about performance anxiety and stuff like that. And I was like, well, one of the most important things to consider is that you are there not to be judged. You are here to share, exactly as you're saying. Like, you are here to share you, because no one else can be you. So by default, you already win at being yourself because no one can be you, And all of us have something very unique and beautiful to share that is unique and beautiful only to us, And like, but I think that in our classical music world especially, we have all these people who like play so well, and we all want to be like them, right? And I think that it's fair that we want to be like them, because
I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, like, it's a good thing to aspire, but I think sometimes we go too far, and then we start to think of that as like a standard that we have to live up to, and I think that goes too far, and that's something that I didn't realize about myself until my husband pointed that out to me, that I was like, I was like, oh, huh. Like, it's good to learn from other people. It's good to be inspired by other people, but you're not going to be that person. You are only ever going to be yourself. And that is the best thing, Yeah. So I guess, like, that would be my husband's tip, is that you have nothing to prove. Like, knowing you have nothing to prove really is fantastic for
it's a very freeing thought if you can live by it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And like, I will say that like personally, I feel like I came back a changed person. Like, you know, because I think what I really realized was that you truly do your best work if you truly believe that you have nothing to prove.
Right.
Because then everything you do is actually genuine and you want to do it because you want to, not because you think you have to.
Right.
You know, and I think the same goes for performing. The most genuine performances are the ones where the performer wants to be there.
Right.
Right. It's not
And
that they feel that they have to. Again, I think it's this idea of owning it. Right?
Yes. I think it comes back to that always.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that came up because I feel like teaching has helped me too with
Yes.
performance.
Yes. Yes. Same.
I very much feel like the first day
Yeah.
I was hired at the school and my first day of teaching, I was a complete disaster wreck. I was so nervous, more nervous probably than I've ever been performing. I'm not kidding.
Like, yep. That's what happened to me in Italy.
Horrible. Yeah. Like, I'm so glad you brought it up because it reminded me of what happened that day. Got through the day and had that high of, oh my God, I did it. I taught 7 students. I had a great time. They liked it. I liked it. I'm successful.
Yep.
Left, put my flute on top of the car, got in the car, drove away. Flute ended up in the street because, like literally put the flute on the roof of my car, like to open up my door, got in the car and drove away.
Oh, no.
All the way home. The school called me and said, do you have your flute? And I was like, of course I have my flute. And then I like went to touch it and I didn't have my flute.
There.
And they were like, because a police officer just found it in the middle of the street and brought it to us. It was fine. All was fine. But that shows how nervous I was because I couldn't even recover from that anxiety. Like I wasn't thinking. I wasn't.
Oh my gosh. That's basically me setting the alarm on my family.
I was so mentally exhausted from all of that anxiety when I'd already gotten the job.
Yeah. Yep.
I went through the interview process.
Yeah.
I was there because I earned it and I wanted it.
And they wanted you.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could not get past that though. Like it was the most nerve-wracking day of my life. Actually, 100% more than any other performance I've ever had. Yeah.
Like I was crying at 3:45 a.m. Like I didn't, because I've never cried like that before a performance, actually. Like
a different type of fear, I think.
Yeah. I think to me, it really was that I felt like I had to prove that I was worth it.
A lot of pressure.
Yeah. And to have my husband straight up tell me, you don't have to do that, was
freeing.
Wild. It was so liberating, but it was also still like, even in the moment when I was talking to my chamber ensemble the next morning, like even like it's an exercise that you have to keep doing though. Yeah. That's what I noticed, was that like I had to like stop myself in the middle of teaching them and be like, am I going to tell them this thing because I think I should? Mm-hmm. Or am I going to tell this to them because I genuinely think this, and that I genuinely think that if I were them, this would help me, right? Like I had to keep stopping myself because like there are definitely some things, like I think in our heads we dream up this thing of like, oh, teachers can always hear when you're out of tune and can always tell which way you're out of tune and blah. No,
we can't.
We can't. Okay. So like
released.
Right. But like, so like in my head, I'm like, if I were them, I would be able to tell that it's off. So why don't we walk through how to find out? Right. Yeah. So then like, instead of just taking a tuner out and tuning all of them, instead I was like, okay, let's all listen to the lowest note of the group, you know, like, and blend in with that person, you know, and that like teaching like that was wildly more successful than just taking out a tuner and tuning everyone, you know? Yeah. right? Like, and it's crazy, right? That like we will do different things depending on if we think we have to versus
Right.
if we genuinely want to do it, you know?
Believe, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like every lesson, like even in my 15 years of teaching, on the last day of year 15, I would get not really nervous, but like just like, ooh, like little butterfly, like, ooh, I have to teach today. Like, ooh, I have 7 students. Like it kind of helped me practice, like harness it, like really working on it, because as a teacher, I just always wanted my kids to have the best experience. So I always put a lot of pressure on myself, which is why I think that anxiety comes. Like, I just want them to just have the best experience possible. And kind of living through that every day. I was teaching every day, kind of just helps you learn to work with it.
I do think too, like, I agree that like
teaching helps much.
Because you are making money off of it actively.
Right.
And so for me, I think the thing that always gets me is I really want to make it worth their while and worth their money.
Yes.
And so there's always, it's kind of weird because it's like on the one hand, it does make me teach better because I will actively try not to waste their time.
Right.
But then on the flip side, it can also go too far where like I will end up accidentally pushing my students too much in a direction that is not actually edifying to them right now, right? Like sometimes you really do have to just slow down and just talk with them.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just have to have a talking lesson because that's what they need.
Right.
You know, like I know that my best lessons with my teachers were the ones when they slowed down and just had a chat with me. Like it's that nerves performance anxiety chat that I had with my piano teacher. She just decided that day to slow down and talk about it, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, I think having that practice of forcing yourself to slow down to really talk about what really matters. I do think that practice does help you figure out how to harness your own anxiety and figure out, you know, how to be its friend, basically.
Right.
You know.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Exactly. So I'm going to read a few more of these. So Steven says that he sometimes finds that perfect performances can be emotionless too. Yeah. It's technically perfect performances.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, his teacher instilled in him that no one is perfect. So when he makes a mistake, he recovers more easily. That's fantastic because that's what I try to instill in my students too. And it's kind of nice to know.
It's going to happen.
Exactly. It's going to happen. And it's not a bad thing.
No.
I think that's the thing that not a lot of people say out loud, you know, that like making a mistake is not a bad thing. You know, it's actually a great thing, you know.
It makes it yours. It's like, there's my little spice.
I
have spice there. Hope you like it. Like
little Salt Bay on there, you know. That's fantastic. I'm really glad that other teachers are doing that. Like it's so great. Error recovery, Jake is saying, is a critical skill in music and life in general. Yes, it is.
I have to talk about error recovery for 1 second because this is a huge test of error recovery. I was performing Mozart Concerto for Flute and Harp.
Okay.
And the harpist was in the middle of one of her cadenzas, and one of her strings hit her in the face. I'm not kidding. Like, it snapped off the harp, and you heard it snap, and then it whipped her in the face. She kept playing her cadenza. She did not stop. And I was able to just come in when it was my turn.
Wow.
And we recovered. But I mean, it was mostly her that had the recovering work, right? Like, it wasn't as much me, but having that happen next to you, you're thinking, is this going to fall apart? Is she okay? Is she hurt? Like there's so many.
Yeah.
Recovery just kind of has to, now if she had stopped and said, I'm really hurt.
Oh yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah.
She kept going. I kept going. We recovered and finished. It's all about how you handle it in the moment.
Yeah, it really is. And I think like knowing that it's not a life or death situation really helps. You know, like I feel that if you haven't had these types of mishaps happening, errors, or even just straight up failures, you know, then it's hard to really believe that it's not a life or death situation. But so if you've done enough performances, you will have some that are not as great as others, which arguably is the more valuable experience, you know, because when you actually do more and more performances later on, your brain knows that it's not a life or death situation. So that frees you up to actually recover from mistakes.
To kind of know.
Yeah, exactly. Like instead of freaking out when an error happens, because you know that you're going to survive anyway. So you just carry on.
Yeah. My husband is not a musician. He cannot do anything music related. He will always remind me, because he'll come and watch everything. He'll be like, no one knows.
Yes.
Unless there's like a flutist in the audience that has played this piece, or, you know, a musician that can hear something is not right.
Yep.
No one knows. He's like, I don't know from right or wrong. He was like, I don't. He was like, so please don't even.
Yeah.
No one knows.
Yeah. It's so true. Like you can absolutely use that to your advantage, you know?
Definitely.
Like even here's the thing is something I noticed is that like some people think of it conditionally. So some people are like, people don't know if they're not musicians, or they say things like people don't know if they're not flutists. But I will say, even if they are flutists, even if they have played the piece before, even if they like are like know exactly what you're doing, if you sell it enough, they don't know.
Oh, I was sitting here. We did a live. It'll be released soon. I'm not going to drop the bomb. I'm not going to tell you who it was. Amazing flutists here last week. And it was a live. It's going to be a live recording. We're going to release it. Somebody finished and I was like, that was phenomenal. I had the score in front of me. I was following the score. And she goes, oh, I messed up here. And I was like, where? I have the score in front of me. I am a flutist.
Yeah.
I have masters. Yeah. I didn't hear a thing. Like it.
Yep. Yeah. You don't. Like, I have told this story before. So for people here who haven't heard it, this is one of my favorite stories to tell my students. I, for some reason, I don't know why, but when I was in high school, I decided to memorize a French piece, and perform it. Yeah. And perform it at my teacher's studio recital. So I did it, but there was one line that I just blanked on. Just blanked. I knew exactly how to get into it, and I knew how to get out. And I even knew what the piano was doing, but I had no idea what I was doing in that one line. Like, I just blank completely. So I was like, ain't nothing for it, right? So I just like made crap up and just, just like was super expressive through it. Yeah. It clashed. It sounded bad. At least to me, it sounded bad. Like, it was like, I didn't know. My ear was really bad at the time. This was like before music school, so I hadn't taken ear training or anything like that. So anyway, afterwards, this one of the my fellow like studio colleagues' sister came up to me because this other flutist and her sister, they would perform together because her sister was a pianist. Mm-hmm. And so they would go to competitions together and they would, et cetera. They're really adorable. And so her sister comes up to me and she goes, man, you did a great job. And I'm like, okay, since I know you have played this piece before, I'm just going to be real with you and say I just made up a whole line because I did not remember it.
Yeah.
I was like, it's just like, I felt like I had the right to pretend and say, oh, thank you to like everyone else. But to her, I was like, nah, honey, you know this piece, you know, like I'm going to be real with you. And then her response was, oh, is that why I felt like it didn't quite go the way I remembered? But you sold it so well that I thought that my memory was just false.
It's all about how you sell it, baby.
Yeah. So I was like, that's why I always tell people, I'm like, it's not just the people who don't know the music who think that, who will just believe you. It's people who have freaking performed it themselves.
Yes.
They will second guess their own memory of it if you sell it hard enough, you know? So like, I don't know if this is particularly a tip for performance anxiety, but I do know that like after that experience, it made my next performances way more confident because I think it's the knowledge, knowing that you can actually do it.
Yeah.
Like really like tampered my anxiety down for my performances after that. But you have to have that initial experience of like, oh crap, what do I do? Make it up, you know?
It's all lessons that you have to go through.
It's just like have experiences, I would say, you know, like do things, make those experiences for yourself.
Yourself out there, be scared, be nervous, and just learn how to work through it.
Exactly. All right. I think we should start to wrap this up. I'm just going to go through the chat and see if there's anything particular that like bounces out at us.
Okay.
Let's see. Oh, Megan says that their anxiety is bad enough that they don't want to test their flute in front of repair people when they take their flute in for a COA. Oh, it's
you make you test in front of them?
Yeah.
Not here.
Like you can, but I mean, like I would say that like especially in that situation, there's no reason for you to have to test it in front of them. Like you can absolutely take it home, test it yourself, and then you should be able to bring it back for like in case something settles or anything like that.
You're the boss.
Yeah. Oh, like I guess again, you can own that situation and do it your way. You know? Yeah. Like and like it's not like you have to play in front of people, you know? Like if that's not something you want to do, don't do it. You know,
especially in that particular experience, like that might just be not something you want to do, and that's fine.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I wanted to address this particular comment because like I want you guys to know that as much as we are telling you guys to go out and get experiences, we're telling you guys to go out and get experiences if you want to.
That are comfortable for you.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so that you know what I mean. Like it's not going to be comfortable, but you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Exactly.
And if not, then
like you have to have that conviction, that personal conviction that this is something you want to do, you know. And like I feel that personal conviction versus comfort are two completely different things.
100%.
Yeah. So like if you have the personal conviction to do so, you have our blessing to do so. But if you do not have your own personal conviction to do this, to do any of this, don't do it. It's not good for your mental health.
No.
You know?
Agree. I can agree with that.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point to close off with. Like we want you guys to know that we want the best for you guys. But at the same time, we don't want to be part of the reason why people might think that there's a standard to live up to or expectations to fulfill or that you have to perform. We just want to help people who do want to perform better and who do want to like manage their anxiety better while they're performing. So we just want to make sure that you guys know that we love you, we care about you, and we just want you to live your best life. That's all.
That's it.
Awesome. Well, Kristen, thank you so much for joining me today.
That was super fun.
Yeah, it was super, super fun. And like, I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation. If this flies off the rails, we might do another. Don't know. Yeah, it would be so fun. Yeah, because I just think that it's really good to hear it like genuinely from two flutists, you know,
Yes.
that like we do this stuff professionally, you know, and so we've had a lot of time to think about it.
Too
So
much.
yeah, I feel like a lot of times we think about it a lot, and yet we don't really have like an outlet to like
No,
express
this was
it.
so perfect.
Yeah. Thank you for having this
Thank
conversation
you.
with me.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, it's time to say goodbye. Thank you
Oh,
all so much for watching. Thank you, Flute Center, for sponsoring today's stream. We love you all so much. This is the way I end off all my streams, which is I want you guys all to be happy, healthy, and safe, because there is no music without the musician.
love it.
All right. See you, everyone. I'm going to go to our goodbye screen, and then we can say bye to each other. Does that sound good? All right. Going to the goodbye screen in 3, 2, 1. All right. Goodbye, everyone.